There we go.
Oh my God. Whatever. Should power through. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 178 of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. Here for you again on a Thursday night, hopefully back to Wednesdays going forward. But, sometimes you have to adjust on the fly. 7:02 p.m. Football winding down more and more as we go. We have some Patriots news that dropped a couple hours ago that we'll get to eventually. We had a big NHL trade yesterday and plenty more as the NBA trade deadline approaches as well. But before we get into anything, talking about the conference championships, to start, Ryan, how are you as always?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm very well. Pretty good mood. Pretty good mood.
That's good.
Yes, very good. It's been a weird week though. I've been remote all week. There's been some flooding in the office. It's
It's
changed
not
the
good.
tempo of my week. I work from home a little bit, but not for a full week. It's been a little bit of an adjustment. But um, conference championships, Chiefs at Ravens. Weird to see the Chiefs in a AFC championship game on the road, but they handled business. The Ravens really did not. The Chiefs win 17-10. I went over on this game, under on the other, wrong on both. Classic. Um, it's being proven to us more and more that I think the Chiefs kind of somehow managed to disguise Travis Kelce and not allow him to do this for a while late in the
Mm-hmm.
regular season and even at points throughout the whole regular season. And now they're just letting him do everything partially, he's partially succeeding due to bad defense, lack of double coverage,
Yep,
which
I was
was
gonna say
crazy.
that's yeah.
Absolutely insane. Not saying it works for all tight ends. We've seen people try to do it to Rob Gronkowski in the past too. Doesn't always work that way. But the Ravens didn't really seem to make much of an effort, which was problematic given the fact that Kelce did not drop a single pass, 11 catches on 11 targets, 116 yards and a touchdown. But this one, outside of Lamar, as the MVP favorite, was unfortunately the Zay Flowers game. Just to address, I did not take down the Zay Flowers jersey behind me because of the incident.
Oh, I didn't
I
even
just
notice that.
it looks like it's just like the sleeves pop out. And I don't like how it looks behind my head, so I put the little Cam Neely
There
banner
you
I
go.
have there instead. But Zay is over there. It can be seen as a punishment, though, I guess. He fucked up. I liked it at first. Like, obviously, the taunting penalty was dumb, but like, he's in the moment, like, a little fired up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you score, it's fine, but it's not a good look either way. Then he reaches for it, reached for the end zone, which I didn't have much of a problem with, but it is risky. Just a drive from hell, frustrated on the bench, hurts himself. I think he cut like one of his fingers open.
Yep.
Um,
I
a
never saw the
drive from
football again
hell.
after that.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy how perception on a guy, great personality, positive guy, great player, can change so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate as a big Zay Flowers guy. I have to address it. I have to, get on the soapbox. I have to be a man of the people, take it on the chest. So um, I kind of wondered in the back of my head, like he's doing this to L'Jarius Sneed, one of the best corners in the league. Is this going to come back to bite him? It came back to bite him pretty
Almost
quickly.
immediately. Yeah.
Um, Pretty astonishing stuff. I was just sitting on the couch like in disbelief and just
Mm-hmm.
like really bummed out to see such a promising season and awesome season really take a turn so quickly for such an awesome player. Um, it was a wild game, despite it not being super high scoring. You had that. You had a back and forth battle, and it came down to a lot of Lamar Jackson not being able to make big plays. The Ravens not being able to make big plays,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said earlier, it doesn't help when you're letting Travis Kelce run all over you. Uh, it was pretty good. I think we expected it a little closer, but I mean, I don't think anybody should be super surprised by this outcome. Um, good classic AFC Championship game. I don't think there's really a ton to complain about unless you hate the Chiefs, which we do, but
Which we do, yeah.
they're inevitable. They're at the point where their Patriot status, Mahomes is on great track to pace Brady as he keeps going on, especially if he wins another Super Bowl.
Repeat that one again for the people that may think because there's been a lot of that talk this past week. He's on track, is what you said. He
Yeah,
hasn't
he's
passed him
on
or
track.
anything. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah,
A
no, I tweeted about.
lot of people out there losing their minds this week.
Yeah, I tweeted about this too. It just, to me, it's not really worth getting super worked up about. It's just the fact that, a lot of this stems from Patriots hatred, and specifically Tom Brady hatred. And some people, whether they're trolling or not, fail to acknowledge the fact that it's okay to say he's on track instead of already being better than Brady, because he's not. It's just factual. Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes has 2. Talk to me when Patrick Mahomes hits 6 or 7 at least, because he's on track right now. In some respects, he's had a better career than Brady to this point, but that hasn't happened yet. Solid football game though. Not a ton to complain about besides the Zay stuff. Not good for the Lamar Jackson legacy, and this was a storyline bonanza game.
See, I disagree with you on that. Maybe I don't want it to come across like it's my Chiefs bias coming through, but I thought and you kind of touched on it a little bit at the start, with just the lack of coverage on Travis Kelce. I thought this game sucked, to be honest. Like they were, and I mean, it's the Ravens coming through. That was my big takeaway, and the Zay Flowers stuff goes along with it. I'm with you. Obviously, love the player, great skill set, but we talked about it. We were texting when it happened. We were both kind of on opposite ends of the fence on it. Like you said, you liked it in the moment. I immediately was like, dude, you're down. You haven't done. He was good in this game up until that point, but the Ravens as a whole hadn't done anything up until that point. Like, get the first down, shut your mouth. They would have been on the 10-yard line or whatever it would have been. So you hurt yourself there, and then you went through, just the complete instant karma right after the fact, which was tough to see.
He did win me $113 to be
there
fair.
you go. That's right. You did tell me that, so that's good. Another positive there.
Or 133, something like that.
Very nice.
A lot.
But on both sides of the ball, I mean, this was, and a lot of people have kind of shared the same thought process. Like, this was a horrible game, both for Mike McDonald, the former now defensive coordinator of the Ravens, and Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, wasn't much better. I mean, the Ravens are a run-heavy team, as we've seen all season. That's what's worked for them. I don't know if maybe they thought, going into this game, you'd have to throw the ball a lot more to beat the Chiefs. So, you would get away from the run game, which made no sense. I tried looking it up, and I forgot to find the tweet, but I thought somebody tweeted out, like, the Ravens only had, like, 3 or maybe 2 or 3, like, first down run plays all game. It was some weird stat that really went against what the Ravens did all season, which made them so successful. You kind of touched on it, too. We were talking in the moment as well. Like, this, I think, cements Lamar Jackson as a fraud when it comes to the playoffs. Like, you said he's going to...
Go ahead. You're referring to the thing about, like, Lamar Jackson's like lowest point total of the season? Was it that one, like, all coming in
No, I remember that one because I think you sent it to me, or somebody, I saw that maybe from you and somebody else, but I could have sworn there was one where it was like the Ravens only had a couple of like first down runs, which was insane for their offense. That's what paced their offense all season for the most part. But yeah, I mean, this, like, we didn't even talk about one of the bigger plays of the game. Again, you and I texting during it both had the same thought process of, maybe one of the dumbest plays we've seen in football. Lamar Jackson thinking it was a good idea to throw into triple coverage and, got to have situation. You're already in field goal range. You take the points at that point. You don't do anything stupid.
It's like likely put his hand up and Lamar's like, all right, I got my mind made up. Just gonna throw it. That's just the shit with quarterbacks in general that drives me crazy. And quickly on like the boring aspect of it, I guess in my mind, like if I see one where you really have to fight for inches like that,
but yeah, that's, I mean,
a game can be decided by 1 or 2 plays. I don't have much of a problem with it in the playoffs because it's suspenseful. It's ugly, but it's suspenseful. If that happens in the regular season, though, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like if it happens in a game with the Bears and like the Buccaneers, like that's awful. But in this, I didn't really mind it. I was a little bit sidetracked mentally with the whole Zay thing, kind of rattled, but that might have contributed to it. But I don't know.
And when I say the game sucked, I don't want it to come off like, oh, I wanted this game to be like 45 to 40, like anything like that.
That would have been fun though.
It would have been, absolutely. And we kind of got a little bit of that in the next game we're going to talk about in a minute. But, I mean, this, again, maybe it's my Chiefs bias showing, but this game, too, I think was just the epitome of what the Baltimore Ravens are and always have been. Like, obviously, we know with the rivalry with the Patriots, they're a team that would just continuously shoot themselves in the foot or, kind of talk a big game and never be able to back it up. You said it, the Chiefs nowadays are the old-time Patriots. And the Ravens are still the Ravens. Like you talked about the Zay Flowers stuff, Lamar not being able to come through. The fact that the Ravens had 8 penalties in this game for 95 yards, which you obviously know you just can't do that against the Chiefs. Again, you couldn't get penalties against the Patriots back in their heyday. You can't do it now against the Chiefs. They're going to burn you. Real quick, just dumb penalties too. You had the Van Noy unnecessary roughness getting into it with Kelsey. You knew that was going to happen. I think even Romo said it on the broadcast jokingly, like, "Oh, it's always the last guy in that gets the flag." Van Noy's a veteran. He should know better at that point. Especially again, you're playing the Chiefs. You're not going to get away with stuff like that. Jadeveon Clowney has the unnecessary roughness penalty, which, dude, you're a veteran. You should know you can't be hitting guys in the head, especially Mahomes. Again, it comes back to them, maybe the people that will argue the Chiefs referee bias, stuff like that. But again, that's going to be called no matter who the quarterback is. And then, like I said, some of the worst play calling on both sides of the football, I think a lot of people have seen in a long time.
Yep.
And just an overall, just like this is the year you thought it would be different with the Ravens because everything seemed to be clicking. Some people wanted to make a whole lot about Lamar's game against the Texans last week and say, he finally has broken through. He hasn't. He stinks in the playoffs. Like I think it's cemented now after this game. And it was just more of the same for the Ravens. They're frauds, as they always have been. And until I don't know what changes, they always will be.
Agreed. I think you summed up very well. We have a
Thank
couple bits of NBA breaking news.
Okay. I do have it on in the
Joel-
background. All-Stars are getting announced, I saw.
Joel Embiid has an injured lateral meniscus in his left knee, will be out through the weekend while a treatment plan is finalized. And the Memphis Grizzlies are trading Steven Adams to the Rockets for Victor Oladipo and 3 second-round picks.
Okay. Interesting.
So Adams will be back next year.
I was just going to say, he's not even playing this year, so that's kind of
that was
interesting.
pretty weird. I thought I saw someone. Oh, yeah. Sham said it's a torn meniscus for Joel Embiid. I thought I saw that, so that's not good.
No,
for anybody saying he was rightfully saying he was sitting out the last game or played through the last game through the injury because of the narrative. Apparently not. Maybe he injured it further.
Right.
But
I will eat my words on that one because I was one of those people.
I was with you.
Yep.
Lions and Buccaneers.
I have a point real quick. Sorry, because I saw you raise your hands when I was talking. Did you have a point on the Ravens?
No, it was about the NBA stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, nothing too crazy, but figured we'd bring it up for anybody who didn't see it.
Yep.
Lions at 49ers. Don't know why I said Buccaneers, maybe because it was in red in the outline. I don't know. That's my only guess. 34-31, 49ers. The Lions got so close. Brock Purdy threw the ball 16 times, but he completed 13
that was
of those passes.
I forgot to put that in the outline. That was second half. First half was not very good, as we saw. Second half,
I was going to say that didn't seem right, but
I
didn't. I also didn't look at his full stat line. Yeah, so he's 13 for 16 for 174 in the second half. Makes more sense. CMC, 90 yards on 20 carries for 2 touchdowns in the second half. 42 yards through the air. Debo, 89 yards. Ayuk, 68 yards. I was hitting on touchdown scores like crazy this weekend. Hit on 3 of 3, I think. We saw the explosive 49ers, which is obviously important.
Took them a whole half, but it ended up working out.
I guess. But we really saw what they're capable of in full display here, enough to get the win. George Kittle seemed confident in the first half, and he was right to be that confident. If I was a Lions fan, I would be extremely upset with Dan Campbell. Like, extremely, extremely upset with Dan Campbell. You got the 4th down conversion earlier in the game. I believe it was the second quarter. Wait, is this? Oh yeah, you have it.
The breakdown of all the things that people have kind of, and I wanted to get your thoughts on. Okay. You kind of alluded to it.
I just wanted to look back at it. Yeah, he had the one he converted on, and then obviously the one big one blow up in his face.
Yep.
You can't defend that at all. I'm sorry, just can't.
Well, he's sticking by it, and there's a lot of people that have kind of shared the same thought process of like, well, he did it in the regular season a ton. You're not going to change your ways now in the playoffs, which I don't believe. Like at this point, again, 7:03 left in the third, you're up 2 scores. You choose to go for it on 4th and 2 from the 49ers 28. Kick a field goal there. You get it. You're not icing the game, obviously, because there's still plenty of time left, but it definitely makes the comeback a little more difficult in the end. You have 7:32 left in the 4th. Now you're down 27-24, so now you have to score. again, goes for it on 4th and 3 from the 49ers 30. Field goal would have obviously tied the game. The 1-2 that I haven't seen a lot of people get on him for, what I, in the moment, thought was just absolutely insane, was the choosing to run on 3rd and goal with a minute left with Montgomery, where I don't know if he had a timeout left or no timeouts. That might have been the one he burned his last one on. But that one, too, like, that's a spot where if you're going to run the ball, you have to know that you are going to get into the end zone. That you can't have any chances be taken there. But I kind of had this conversation with my dad because he was more on the side of it too. He wasn't going to blame Dan Campbell a lot, and maybe rightfully so, because those 2 4th downs, the ball hit Josh Reynolds right in the hand and right in the hands and right in the chest. So like you could very well easily blame him just as much. Like if he catches those 2 balls, we're maybe not talking about Dan Campbell, having just one of the worst blowups I feel like you could maybe have when it comes to these coaching decisions. So I think, yeah, you probably blame Campbell more for the decisions to go for it, but he had those 2 plays, so it's not like he missed on anything or drew up these insane things that were never going to work. Like
my thing it comes down to is just greediness.
Absolutely, you could definitely argue that side. And I think
like
that's
a little too aggressive, a little too Madden-esque. Didn't like it. It sucks for Detroit. I thought they played a pretty solid game outside of those miscues. Like first time in this position, and God knows how long. First time in probably everybody on the team's career. I don't know if anybody else has come over and played in an NFC Championship in the past. None that I can think of off the top of my head, but
was Reynolds
pretty good
on that
game.
LA team, maybe? I don't know if he was on that team that won the Super Bowl with the Rams.
Reynolds might have been, yeah.
But regardless, like you said, the point is that most of the guys have never been there and may never. If you ask Dan Campbell, like he was pretty. I thought that was the one good thing. He was pretty, good in the post game. If you saw that or heard anything about it, where he basically was like, "This might be the one chance we get." So like we know we obviously have to get back there.
Yeah, you fucked it up, dude. Like
yeah, well that's the thing too. And then on the flip side of it, like the fact that he stayed with it
we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Like Jameson Williams starts the game with a 42-yard rush. That was pretty electric. Felt like a good omen for the Lions. Almost was. Feel like he's due for a pretty big breakout next year if he can stay healthy.
Yep, absolutely.
Him and Allen Rock can be a fantastic duo. Just one of those things. Like you could kind of see this coming. Like if the Lions were going to show up, there's a good chance they were going to lose close. It was going to be really hard to beat the 49ers. Like I said, though, like first time there, you can also see a scenario where they get kind of blown out. For them, there's a lot to build on. I think Dan Campbell needs to look in the mirror a little bit here. No, it doesn't like destroy his credibility or anything. I just thought it was kind of crazy. But our Super Bowl is set. We'll talk about it more in depth, Chiefs and 49ers next week. But it should be a good one. It's the one a lot of people didn't want, but should still be a pretty good game. I bet heavily on the Chiefs because I'm done.
Yep.
I've been betting against them, but like I gotta get on the right side of history here because they're gonna win another Super Bowl.
God, I hope not.
But I hope I'm wrong. NFL awards. Ryan, I didn't know the NFL awards were on the 8th until I saw this in the outline the first time. I don't know why. Award season is always like a few months after the season in my head. So I defaulted to believing the NFL would be the same. I have a future on Jahmyr Gibbs to win Offensive Rookie of the Year from the beginning of the season. Don't think that'll happen. And Jalen Carter, which I think will happen. Spoiler. First off, MVP, Lamar Jackson. I think this is a really good case for Dak, but you can honestly, in some ways, make a better case for Dak, I believe. But Lamar's been the favorite for so long. His late regular season play with the Ravens helped as well. Dak had a great season, but it just seems all the public perception, betting odds and stuff, it feels like it's going to be Lamar Jackson. I think there's a case for it. If I had to vote, I might go Dak, but I don't think you can necessarily go wrong either way. It just depends how you look at it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, how many times did they bring it up watching the broadcast on the Chiefs game that, future MVP, potentially Lamar Jackson. So I feel like it's pretty much set in stone at this point. We've talked about it plenty of times on the show leading up to the playoffs and the award talk that like, if there was a year to have a position player win it, I feel like this would be one of the better years. CMC, obviously what he was able to do with that team in San Francisco, but you said it. It's been probably a long time coming for Lamar at this point. He played really well down the stretch. I'm not going to, take away that for a really bad playoff performance. But would I like it to be somebody else because the stats are better? yes, because again, I've been saying it for a while. Lamar's stats don't really jump off the page to me all that much. Like he had a good year. But I don't know what I have it here somewhere. I'm trying to pull it up. The touchdowns and like again, these aren't numbers that are gonna blow you away. Like against when you stack it up against these guys, I'm not gonna run through everything here, but Lamar, 24 touchdowns, 7 picks. I was surprised he only had 5 rushing touchdowns. I would have thought that would have been more.
Yeah.
You said you can make a great case for Dak. He had 36 touchdowns. Obviously, that led the NFL. Over 4,500 yards as well when it came to passing. But it feels like it's been known it's going to be Lamar for a while. So we're going to go with the odds makers here and probably stick with Lamar.
Yeah, and I think the former MVP status has some luster to it as well. That's helping him.
Yep.
Offensive Player of the Year. I love what Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb did this year, but it's McCaffrey and it shouldn't be close.
No,
Like,
I'm right there with you.
He's the most dominant player in football, the most effortlessly skilled. Can do everything. If you ask him to play quarterback, I bet he could win you a game. Seriously, I'm not kidding. He's the most talented player in the world. He absolutely is. At least offensive, I think some people could make the case for TJ Watt with the season he had. But if you're putting points on the board, that stands out a little more to me than an edge rusher. Nothing against TJ Watt, but as many points as he's accountable for with the 49ers and that explosive offense, it has to be him. Has to be.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Preposterous season.
Yep.
And I'll say real quick, my brother and his friend talked me out of in our league taking Christian McCaffrey first, which I'm pissed about because I took Jefferson, so that sucks.
Yeah. That is rough.
Just shout out to him for nothing.
Yeah, it's good. I'm right there with you. I think, obviously Hill, we kind of saw him with the injuries pile up towards the end of the season, got a little banged up. So his case for this, I feel like kind of fell off a little bit. It's been McCaffrey throughout the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's clear and obvious. I'm not going to say the same things you already said, sound like a broken record here.
Yeah, my brother and his buddy are going to be like the 50 Cent meme. He's like, fuck me. What are you saying fuck me for? Defensive Player of the Year. This is another one that's easy. There are plenty of good cases. No one had a season like TJ Watt. No one. He was just purely dominant.
Yeah, I feel maybe it fell off towards the end of the season a little bit, but I feel like a lot of the talk, at least midway through the season, was maybe Myles Garrett. But then you throw the stats up against each other, and TJ Watt blows him out of the water. So
yeah, almost 20 sacks. Like, come on.
I really wanted to pick DaRon Bland, just because I think maybe some people will factor in the 9 interceptions, the 5 pick sixes, obviously breaking a record.
Later in the season had a couple rough games.
I was just gonna say that though. He got cooked a couple times late in the season, so I think that is what
will playoffs too. I don't.
Yeah, what'll knock his case down, but be interesting to see. I think he can maybe make a run at it. Maybe, like I said, some people will lean into that, historic season that he had when it came to the interceptions and touchdowns.
Even then, like, I think these rewards can be reputation based as well.
Yeah, that too.
Bland still has work to do.
Absolutely.
Head coach. I'm a
little surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought you were gonna go with either him or maybe even Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I kind of wanted DeMeco Ryan. I kind of wanted to go DeMeco Ryans because of the obvious, what he helped do to turn around the Texans, make them a phenomenal team. Maybe not phenomenal. Maybe that's a little premature, but Stefanski, took a Browns team that very well could have won like 6 or 7 games, I believe, especially with the injury troubles, a bunch of different QBs. They had Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker out there at times. We'll talk about them later with the Patriots news and the Browns. But it's got to be Stefanski. He got a lot of the team. He, helped Joe Flacco integrate seamlessly. Lost Nick Chubb at the beginning of the year. This isn't all him, but I think we saw, big steps at times from guys on defense like Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, who are both studs in my opinion. I think Stefanski is very worthy of this, and I think he's going to win it, and he's the betting favorite. So.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, but again, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to kind of lean the same way. Stefanski's obviously my pick for the same reasons. You lose Nick Chubb, what was it, week 3 or 4 of the year?
Earlier.
Yeah, I very well could have been. You're right. Deshaun Watson had some moments here and there. He gets hurt, like you mentioned, the bum quarterbacks they end up playing with. And then the fact that you get Joe Flacco off his couch and he leads you to the playoffs, like that obviously goes a long way for Stefanski as well. So I think, they didn't have Myles Garrett a couple games as well. I think he was hurt maybe 1 or 2 games towards the end of the season. So a team that with the injuries
was out a little bit. He's a great safety.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to say with the injuries that they had, that's a team that very well, I think at one point in the year, it was either me, you, or it was definitely me, but maybe both of us that were like, oh, the Browns are dead. The injuries are starting to pile up. Their season's going to come crumbling down at some point. They don't have a quarterback. And they just overcame pretty much everything that was thrown at them. So I I like what Ryan's did. I like what Campbell did. Obviously, we talked a lot about, highly of both those teams this year when we did the recaps, but through all the adversity that the Browns had to go through from injuries and stuff like that, it's got to be Stefanski.
Yeah, it has to be, I think, when it all comes down to it. But Ryan's has a great case. Offensive rookie of the year, I wanted to pick Puka Nacua, but I think when you have a quarterback performance like CJ Stroud, he's just going to edge him out. And he's also the betting favorite. I think that's kind of a precursor a lot of times.
Yep.
If I had to vote, I would probably pick Nacua by a small margin, but I think CJ Stroud's going to get it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat.
Puka Nacua was insane for a fifth round pick.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to pick against a stud QB for a team that shouldn't have made the playoffs.
I was just gonna say you could argue that CJ Stroud, I don't want to say carried, because I mean they had some breakout players in that team, and one guy maybe we'll get into in a second with defensive rookie of the year, spoiler, could very well argue, he helped that team along the way a lot too. But for me, I mean, Nacua, when Kupp went down, he was basically that whole offense for the amount of time that Cooper Kupp didn't play. Obviously broke the 2 rookie receiving records that he did at the end of the year. So I know we just talked about maybe not leaning into that when it came to Deron Bland's case for defensive player of the year. I think that is what might help Nacua get over the hump a little bit. I'm with you. I think it's 1 and 2 here. Stroud and Nacua, Gibbs and Laporta and even Bijan at times had great seasons, but this is really a 2-horse race if you ask me. And it wouldn't surprise me with these two guys. I don't know how the voting, shapes out when it comes to these type of things, but couple points or whatever it is, what do they measure it on? Difference between Nacua and Stroud.
Yeah. It's a razor thin one. I think if Jahmyr Gibbs was this dominant all year, he'd have a better case.
Great point too. Yep.
Defensive rookie of the year is tough because Will Anderson, stats wise, edges out Jalen Carter. This is another one I go towards the betting odds a little bit. Jalen Carter's been the heavy favorite for a while.
Really? Because I feel like all they talked about again was the Texans are going to have we're going to see again like the Jets had last year, the 2 offensive and defensive rookies. This is going to be the Texans year for that too. So I thought they were maybe playing that up a lot and kind of playing their hand when it came to broadcast and stuff.
I think Anderson should win it. I feel like Carter is going to though.
Okay. One of those things where you're like, wow.
Also, Devin Witherspoon has a phenomenal case for it. So
I wanted to look at his stats again because I really didn't obviously follow a lot of these guys more so on the defensive side of the ball than you would offensive. But Witherspoon's stats, I know he was having a good year for Seattle. I didn't realize the numbers were that good when the season ended.
He's already elite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that could hurt him though, 14 games played compared to some of these other guys. I mean, Anderson played 15, Carter 16, Porter Jr. and Kobe Turner for the Rams and Steelers respectively, 17 for them. So Witherspoon might have that knocked against him. They didn't play a full or close to a full season.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Anderson's gonna win it. Should win it, but I think Carter is going to. What the betting world seems to be leaning towards that. But I hope I'm wrong because Anderson deserves it more. I don't care about my future. DeMar Hamlin's gonna win comeback player of the year. He is.
I'm gonna sound like an ass for. I hate that.
Sean McDermott called that. Sean McDermott called that play call to help his case. He did.
Is that your conspiracy theory? You put your All right.
Why else would you do that? It's DeMar Hamlin. He's a 6th-round pick at Pittsburgh.
You could argue that, but then again, it's like that was the only thing he did this season was be on special teams. So and that's part of the reason too. It's not just the fact that this was already a predetermined award. It feels like again. You look at the stats. Guy played 5 games. These are only defensive stats. Had 2 tackles. So now we're again, great story for obviously what he was able to overcome and what happened and everything. But at some point, again, I don't want to sound like an ass for saying it, but type of when are we going to move on type of thing. It obviously happened. Obviously he overcame it, stuff like that. This is an award I feel like you give to a guy like Baker Mayfield. That's my pick. A guy who we've talked about before. You've said it numerous times. Who's probably at the at the end of his career, maybe if he came out and had another bad season, what he was able to do, lead the Buccaneers to the playoffs when, we've said before, nobody expected this team to do anything. I know they don't factor in playoff performances, but played great in the playoffs at times as well. Obviously, definitely that Eagles game. You can maybe make a case for Flacco. Again, only played 5 games, but what he was able to do down the stretch, I'm with you. It's probably going to be Hamlin, but I don't know. Like I just feel like the storyline is so overplayed. Like, oh, we obviously know what happened, but the fact that the guy played 5 games and mainly was a special teamer, and again, the one thing he's remembered for this season was the stupid fake punt. Like,
Yeah.
I just I can't agree with it. I know, like I said, it's probably going to sound terrible, but I don't know. I would rather see a
No, I
guy
get
that
where you're
play
coming
the
from.
majority of the season, made a big impact for their team. Maybe he did like, as a locker room type of guy like that, but again, I want to lean more towards guys that have like actual stats that can back their case up.
Yeah, I get it. I think Baker should win too. Really good season, earned himself his next contract as well, which will most likely be with the Bucks.
Yep,
If Joe Flacco played more of the season, I bet he'd have a great case too, which just
absolutely.
didn't play enough. Um, that's it for awards. Keyshawn Booty got arrested on charges related to online gambling.
This is becoming a Patriots thing. Just who's going to
Yeah,
get
man.
arrested each offseason or get into
Um,
trouble in the offseason?
didn't even consider a alter ego. Keyshawn Booty 7, Keyshawn Booty 01.
Very clever.
Made over 8,900 bets in 396 days is addiction at its purest form.
It's putting it lightly.
Betting on himself, frustrated on the sidelines, talking to Jaden Daniels when he bet on himself to get over 81 and a half and then it like parlay and only had like 22 yards or something. Deposited a total of 132 grand. I wonder what his total NIL money he got. I don't know what the breakdown was there. He got there, at a time before NIL came out. Just a preposterous story. Won a total of 556 grand. Withdrew 50 of it from his
Blew
account.
all that for the most part. Yeah.
A pure addict. And
Yeah, it's degenerate as degenerate gets. Like, to put it
an
lightly.
insane story. He's still on the team. Don't know if that'll last. I don't know if they'll cut him over it, but like they might run him through camp, and if he sucks, they'll kind of use that as the excuse on top, the gambling stuff on top of poor performance. Like I think they might give him another shot. This isn't like egregious. It's just really, 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 really dumb and entirely avoidable. He could have done this under a different username and not got caught.
That's the thing that blows me away. It's just the stupidity, the level
That's
of
so
stupidity. And
crazy.
again, we were talking about this in the same, not the same tense, obviously, but last year with Jack Jones, the level of stupidity to bring guns into an airport, allegedly, quote unquote.
By accident.
Yeah.
I misplaced my gun in my luggage.
Oh, I don't know how
my
that got
guns.
there. Yeah.
I hate when that
Those
happens.
guns must have just
don't you
fell into
don't
my
you hate when
bag.
that happens?
Yeah.
The cat must have got up on the counter and
Yeah.
knocked him in,
It's like I don't know if you know the Seinfeld joke, but the episode was on last night. The spit with Keith Hernandez, where Jerry's going through, Kramer getting hit with the spit and ricocheting off in midair, that type of thing. Like, oh, my guns must have fell off the table, changed a trajectory in midair and fell into my bag. But no, just the level of stupidity that we're going through again. Different situation, obviously. But that was the thing that like the number obviously blows you away. You do the math on it. You said it, the 396 days, and roughly comes out to 22 and a half bets a day, which I don't know if there's 22 and a half things to, or sports and stuff like that to bet on a day. Like, there's some days where it's really slow.
He's
So you have to
probably
be,
betting on like table tennis in the
yeah,
Czech
I was gonna say
Republic.
like Japanese, I don't know, like, yeah, table tennis or something like that. Some just weird
I
random
bet on
off.
table tennis once.
Did you really?
Yeah, I
Okay,
saw it
so
under the live section. I was like, this would be funny if it hits.
okay, all right.
Yeah, just once.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I mean,
but
that was the thing
he's a
that blew me away,
moron.
was the stupidity of using your own name. And I got one thing got flagged, so I'll just change the number around, spell my name the exact same way, and have no problems with it. It's insane. It's one of those things where you hope the guy, if there's like obviously there's a problem, so you don't say if there's a problem. But maybe you hope he figures it out, gets some help where there's help clearly needed. But it's a weird spot. Again, I don't want to harp on it too much because we talked about it a lot when it happened. But if the Patriots kept the guy around that allegedly brought guns to an airport, how do you level that out compared to a guy that just was betting crazy? Like, so it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Like, this isn't as bad as something as that happened. So maybe they do keep him around, but it's obviously early in the offseason. They still got things to figure out. So if they pad the receiver position, wouldn't surprise me, like you said, if he comes out, doesn't have the greatest camp, and they're like, oh, well, he just kind of stunk. In reality, they will probably like, we don't want
Or
this
they
moron
could spin
around.
it at they could spin it as, they add someone, they need a roster spot.
Yeah,
He's
that's what I
here.
mean. Yeah, like it
Yeah,
makes it
yeah,
easy to cut him in that spot. Then
Mac Jones stuff. I kind of feel like
any thoughts?
these
Yeah,
reports from Mark Daniels kind of
kind of just pop
what's
up
the
out of
word?
nowhere. Like we always, I feel like have these. For me, it feels like more than any other player on this team. You always tend to like once a week, once or twice a month, get these random Mac Jones reports that come out of nowhere. It is interesting that it seems like Bill Belichick and the coaching staff or whatever just completely shut him out.
Yeah,
So that
no, this is what I'm remembering. He said in the article all of this stuff, and I'm not like anti Mark Daniels, but I thought it was interesting. It was actually brought up in a Nesson article, so it was about Mark Daniels' stuff. So I
okay,
want to make it clear I'm not like discrediting his reporting or anything. It was from the Nesson article, but also mentioned something that Mark Daniels said about them potentially picking up the 5th-year option, which I thought was interesting to be put in
tied
the same
together.
article, but that's
Mm-hmm.
part on whoever wrote it for Nesson too. I just thought that was a little strange. A
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine did as well. There's just so much like shit that's largely unconfirmed about Mac Jones where I kind of just take it all with a grain of salt and don't buy into it.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way, like I said, because you have so many of these like random ass reports that come out of nowhere. It feels like at this point you just gotta be like, all right, like, is
But it
this
does at
Max
the
people
same
putting
time.
this out there? Is
There's
it?
so much people negatively saying things about Mac Jones, reported things from different walks where you
Mhm.
have to wonder if part of it's true. And there's
Yeah,
also a
that's a
report
good
about his
point.
QB's coach, like telling him to vouch for a trade and stuff, who's been with him for 14 years, like
Oh, that I
whatever.
did. I didn't even
Like,
see that one.
yeah, his QB coach has apparently been getting his ear about that. I don't know if that's true either, but the
Mhm.
Mac Jones stuff really doesn't like mean much to me.
I think it just again solidifies like the guy has, and he's going to go. Obviously, you
I do
said it.
think he
They're
has
they're
some
not going to
attitude
pick up his.
issues.
I think you can absolutely argue that, and there's stuff that can back that up. But I think, like we've talked about before, this stuff like this just solidifies the fact that he just has to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like I can't deal with the talk that's come up. I think we maybe talked about it last week. And obviously it's not going to happen now because we know as we'll get to in a second, they are going to have an offensive coordinator. But all the talk of the potential of Josh McDaniels coming back here, and then does that mean Mac Jones sticks around for a year? They try to make it work one more time. Like all that has to go out the window. With the more and more of this stuff that comes out, it's just not going to work here. We've talked about it plenty of times. We sound like a broken record that he is just so far gone at this point that at this
Yeah.
point you kind of hope the guy gets out and goes somewhere else and maybe make something out of his career because whether you believe this stuff or not, it is a lot. Like you said, it seems like it's something new every other week. Some new report, some new bashing. So something's got to
Yeah. At
change.
this
He's got to
point,
go and figure it out.
it's not even about him as like a player. It's just as like needing to get out of New England. I really hope Alex Van Pelt, who they just hired as OC, will segue in that way. Doesn't see Mac Jones as a fit here because
Mm-hmm.
I don't. If you run this back and it doesn't work, it's just going to be agonizing. It's going to potentially alter the future of your franchise. Depending on what else you do in the quarterback realm, you can still keep Mac Jones and draft a decent quarterback, whatever. Um, whatever the situation may be. But yeah, the Patriots hired Alex Van Pelt as offensive coordinator, ex Browns OC. The Browns ranked 12th, 17th, 20th, and 13th in scoring during his tenure. Van Pelt and Stefanski both called plays in those years. He's got a lot in his past as a QB's coach, Bills, Bengals. He was a running backs coach with the Packers at one point. QB coach in some of Aaron Rodgers' final years from 2014 to 2017.
Oh, poor
So if that
guy.
excites you. If he can make Aaron Rodgers even a little bit better and learn stuff from Aaron Rodgers, vice versa, that could be good stuff to pass
That's
around.
fair. Yep.
Seems like I've saw someone say from league source, they heard from someone he's a game changer. Great guy, wealth of experience, has like a West Coast style.
I like that.
Um, he's been experienced for a while. He's got the quarterback background, which is good. Say what you want about who the Bills had at quarterback at times. When he was there, the Bengals, the Browns, but I have to imagine he helped. The excellent quarterback play they got from Joe Flacco this year,
True.
which helps. And in his time with the Browns, he dealt with some shitty quarterbacks at times. So you got to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. It's an interesting guy. It's kind of like Bill Belichick never left in a way. The fact that this never got out that they were even interviewing this guy, which was
Mm-hmm.
funny. Maybe Mayo just takes that off of that what's that like sneakiness, I guess is the word. about letting these things get out.
Mhm.
I didn't know who the guy was until
I didn't
the hire
either.
happened. So I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's for the Browns, like blah blah blah, he fucking sucks. Like, that would just be dumb. There are some fans out there. I bet a lot of
You
those
just
fans didn't
alluded
know who
to
he
it
was
though.
either.
The fact that he was there and was like you just said was able to get something out of whatever he is now, 38-year-old or whatever it is, Joe Flacco, like that.
Yeah.
Short sample size, obviously, just in that sense. But
Yeah, if this is a
that should
guy
have you
that
excited a little bit. Like
if this is the guy that the news doesn't get public on and Gerard Mayo has faith in, I'm not gonna act like I don't. I'm not gonna act like
that.
there's this huge reason. And one more thing real quick.
Go ahead. Yep.
Evan Lazar, uh, from Patriots.com wonders if he'll bring Browns running back coach Stump Mitchell and tight end coach TC McCartney with him to New England. So
Okay.
Stump
Something to
Mitchell,
keep an eye on.
running back coach Vic Chubb, cool with me.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Don't know anything about the guy. His name's Stump. That's also cool. The
Yeah.
team is targeting former Seahawks/Rams assistant Alex Dickerson as offensive line coach. He aided in Seattle's run scheme and the development of Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. Abraham Lucas looked great at times this year. Some rough games I've seen from him, but he's a rookie. Ginormous offensive tackle. Charles Cross, top 10 pick, I believe. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So if he can help potentially Mike Onwenu get even better if they keep him around, please.
Yep.
If they were to draft someone early, maybe like in the nightmare scenario, they take an offensive tackle,
No,
could
no,
help
it is a
develop
nightmare
him.
scenario. Yeah.
Maybe they take a guy
Say
like
it's
Patrick
okay.
Paul or Jordan Morgan in the second round. Just a couple names to throw out there. The kid whose name I don't know how to pronounce, Kingsley Swamataya. That's another guy I've seen linked to the Patriots potentially at 34 as an offensive tackle. I like him, man. Like I said, I can't really act like I have huge vendettas against this guy and what he does. Given the fact I didn't know his name before he was hired.
Fair enough.
If Mayo trusts him, he's got some interesting history, West Coast style offense. I'm okay with it. I'm gonna wait it out, see what happens. Seems like an interesting guy. A good background, a lot of time around the game. I have faith in Mayo. I'm not gonna crap on this move, but I'm not gonna be like woohoo.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I know
right
so
now
much
I'm
about this
kind of
guy. He's awesome. Yeah.
right now I'm kind of just like if Mayo trusts him, I'm on board. Let's see what he does, and it's cool with me.
I'm
It's
with
not
you.
like it could have been worse. It could have been
Oh,
worse.
absolutely.
Like
I was
there
gonna
are
say
definitely
that.
worse guys. The worst guy would have been Luke Getzey, who helped run the Bears
Yeah,
offense
no.
this
When I
year.
saw that, I'm like,
I
you
didn't
got to
want
be
him
kidding
or
me.
Thomas
Like,
Brown. Those were the two no-nos.
I don't even know
Him
who
or
that
Thomas
is.
Brown, no thanks. See you later.
No.
Thomas Brown, terrible team with Carolina. Don't want them. Don't
Oh
even know why
God,
they were
yeah, no
interviewed.
way. No, the only thing I was gonna say is the fact that it's just change alone should be good. Like I know obviously we talked a little bit about it. Nick Haley, I don't think would have been the worst guy named. I was a little surprised it wasn't him in the end because I mean this morning I think it was that you heard that he was going to be one of the finalists. But I'm just psyched for the fact it's not a retread of an old Patriot. Again, I know I just kind of contradict myself there, but we just talked about it with McDaniels. Like how many times are you going to continue to kick that can down the road of bring him back?
Yeah.
See what he can do. I'm glad it's different style offense. I'm glad it's a different look. And then you alluded to it. You brought up a good point when you started the conversation about him. The fact that you didn't hear anything about this kind of came out of the woodworks out of nowhere. Maybe that's something to keep an eye on too. Like you said, maybe this is a guy that, hey, we don't want
They've
this
had their
getting out there
eyes
that
on
we
for a
want to
bit.
hire this guy because we really think highly of him and that we think he's going to do
Yeah.
really good here. Maybe if, it gets out that he's taking interviews with us, somebody else will come in and poach him. So that's got me interested too to see how
The
it works out.
comforting thing too is no McDaniels and Mac reunion,
True. Yep.
which could have happened. So we'll see. I'm cool with it right now. Jeremy Springer, assistant special teams coach from the Rams, is the new special teams coach replacing Cam Accord. A rising young coach and another Sean McVay disciple, from the words of Ian Rappaport. Assistant special teams, so he's getting a promotion. I saw some people reacting to the fact that according to Aaron Schatz at Schatz of NFL, the Rams now have the sixth lowest special teams DVOA ever at minus 9.8%. Not sure what DVOA stands for. It's some analytic. The number 31 Patriots this year at the time on January 1st were negative 3.4. The Rams are almost three times as bad as any other special teams unit this year. I saw another one that they were maybe one of the worst ever too. He's an assistant and he's in a new system. Sure, it wasn't good for the Rams this year, but I'm not gonna be this guy sucks because
Yeah, I'm like,
staff he was on the assistant of. Can you also consider the fact people that might be pissed about this that it's personnel? It's not all on
perhaps.
the
Yeah.
coaches. Like sometimes the players just suck.
And we
It's
saw
not.
that
It's kind
clear
of
as
a
day
hard
here.
position to
Like,
find like really good players. Like you don't see every team with a Matthew Slater
I
or
was just
Justin
gonna say the
Bethel
same thing.
or a
Yep.
Nate Ebner. Nate Ebner was great. Just to name some Patriots. I'm okay with it. Like this is another guy, like didn't really know he existed before. Like they clearly like this guy to give him a higher role than he was with the Rams. I'm okay with it. The special
Mhm.
teams wasn't good this year under record. A new face, a guy Mayo trusts again. Like I'm not gonna like act
Yeah,
like
I'll
I know
take it.
everything about this
Absolutely.
guy. Let it rock. Let it rock.
Yep, right there with you.
And he's got some McVay knowledge in him. Sean McVay's a very smart guy.
Mhm.
So other news in coaching, it doesn't appear Bill Belichick will be getting a head coaching job this year, perhaps, maybe after someone gets fired during the season or just in 2025. As Raheem Morris is the new HC in Atlanta. Zach Robinson, who I was hoping for the Patriots, will be going with him. The QB coach and passing game coordinator from the Rams will be the OC in Atlanta. Former Seahawks OC Shane Waldron will be the new Bears OC. Vic Fangio stepped down, and Kellen Moore went to the Eagles as well to be their OC. Vic Fangio DC. That's a huge pickup for a defense that needs it
Absolutely.
in
I'm
Philly.
surprised he left Miami.
Yeah, it kind of seemed he doesn't like seem like a Miami guy to me. He's kind of old, more like old school. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
Miami
Part of a
lifestyle.
Philly guy then.
I don't know. Good Philly guy. Yeah, good sandpapery feel type of guy. I feel like.
Yep.
Going from Matt Canada to Arthur Smith is pretty funny to me.
That's awful. I hate
Um,
the Steelers, but you feel bad for their fans in that sense. Like,
Look, I'm not
Jesus, he
like
could have done so much better.
I'm not saying Arthur Smith is gonna no doubt be awful in Pittsburgh. I think their offense also just needs help too, personnel wise.
Mm-hmm.
But
Just a
to
bad
go
look.
from HC to OC and go to from the Falcons to the Steelers is pretty funny. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it. You gotta have a little laugh.
Yep.
Former Ravens DC, as you alluded to earlier, Mike McDonald is the new head coach for the Seattle Seahawks, replacing Pete Carroll. DeMarcus Covington, almost forgot about this one when I was going to keep it in the Patriots stuff. I guess I didn't. DeMarcus Covington gets the promotion to defensive coordinator. Has been with the Patriots, I believe, the last 7 years. Watching Mike Duff video, seems like a pretty energetic guy, like, but isn't like a hardo energetic guy. On the younger side, we've
Like
seen a
that,
lot of
absolutely.
hires this year where like, oh, this is the youngest guy, like one of the youngest guys in the league, youngest guy for this team ever that they've hired, which is pretty cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You'll take
no
that on this
complaints from
staff too,
Covington.
after all the, obviously Bill being here at his age and everything. So I think
Yeah,
this is something you and I maybe wanted when it came to these type of searches for these positions. Like go with maybe not an entirely youth movement as you saw with the offensive coach hiring, but try to get younger, try to get more in touch with the league, and I think they're doing that. I can't remember if it was maybe it was Zolak I was listening to, but or I saw it on Twitter maybe that there was a comment about like players are psyched that this guy's getting the promotion. So that's obviously good to see. Maybe, there's some defensive players that might have been on the fence about coming back here free agent wise. Maybe this sways the decision to come back now. So that'll be interesting to see again
yeah,
how a guy that's pretty universally liked, it seemed like on the team with the players and everything,
yeah,
gets a promotion and then ends up working out pretty well, hopefully.
yeah. And for younger guys like Barmore and Keon White, this is good to keep this guy around. And
Absolutely.
give him a promotion. We see what he's turned Barmore into. He's helped guys like Lawrence Guy. Daniel Aquale came over, seemingly on the back nine of his career or short-lived career at the time. I don't think he was playing for that long. We've seen Daniel Aquale be really good. If this guy
Yep.
this guy seems like a guy that can maximize skill sets. That's all I care about. If he's going to be running the defense, though, obviously some more responsibility. Just hope he's ready for it. Mayo's been around him for a while, so I have faith. Again,
Yep.
not going to act like
A lot of
I'm,
faith being thrown around here
super,
tonight.
super against these things until they give me a reason to. Nick Haley, as you said, was a finalist for the OC job, did not get it. Wonder where he ends up. I kind of doubt he's going to stay at this point, but maybe he does. Former Cowboys DC, Dan Quinn is the new head coach of the Washington Commanders. The Ravens promoted Zach Orr in the inside linebackers coach to DC. Then the Rams promoted pass rush coordinator and linebackers coach Chris Shula to DC, whom Miami interviewed for their DC position to replace Raheem Morris. Any overarching thoughts from you, Ryan?
I mean, the big one comes from the big two that have been kind of left out of the dance here, and it's Vrabel, who I heard today, again, listening to Zolak and Bertrand. Zolak seemed to think, and this was a belief he said was shared from a lot of people, that maybe Vrabel was burnt out, so he really wasn't um, a potential hire for anybody. He might sit out a year and then kind of come back, try to see, like you said with Belichick, on maybe there's a firing that he, jumps at mid-season, or again, just waits until next year to come back. So I thought that was kind of interesting to hear. But the big one's obviously Bill. I'm under the belief that this is it. Like I don't see a team. Maybe he goes into television, kind of like Peyton did, comes back. I just don't see it. A year older. Clearly, there were teams that thought, the youth guy or younger guy was the decision to go with. The one that strikes me is the Commanders. I don't know if you saw, I think it was Diana Rossini today, had a tweet that said that the Commanders internally discussed Bill Belichick. There were some people that thought he might be a good move there. And then the fact that Dan Quinn surpasses Bill Belichick, I think that's kind of telling, that a lot of teams maybe think that the game is past Bill by. So like I said, if he sits out this year, unless it's like a drastic move again, like we talked about with the Cowboys, if they, don't make it over the hump, they fire McCarthy next year, maybe they go crazy and hire Bill. Other than that, I just don't see how a year older, a year removed from the game, that Bill is going to get a coaching job in this league. And that sucks to say, because, maybe there is still some ability there.
Yeah.
But I just think this is where the league's going. They want the younger guys, the more in touch guys, like we said. And
Yeah.
as we know, Bill's not that. He's not a player's coach. Like,
I think he gets the first open job if he wants it.
really? Okay.
When someone gets fired. Absolutely.
Okay.
Also, Ben Johnson, speaking of the Commanders, apparently was looking for too much money and surprised people when he was not going to be the guy. So we'll see if he ends up anywhere or if he ends up sticking around with the Lions. So exciting stuff. The offseason will continue to matriculate and we'll have more news come out, but a lot happening as of late. I'm interested to see one final thing how Raheem Morris does as well. I've always thought, he's been an interesting guy to consider for a head coach gig. As long as he has, Zach Robinson with him, I think they're going to have a funner offense at least, which you got to just be happy with, at least baseline, more excitement from the Falcons offense, because there's a lot of potential there. On to Bruins quickly, and a big trade. Not the Bruins, unfortunately. You might have thought so when you heard Lindholm, though. Carolina, former team of Hampus Lindholm, back in the Hampus. See, now I got it mixed up. Elias.
Yeah, all sorts confused.
Bruins lose 3-2, unfortunately. Linus Olmark stops 30-33. They get outshot. That's a theme the past week. 33-28. Tough night of the penalty kill. Canes were 2 for 3. Nikish goals, not great. DeBrusk gets caught up a little too high on the defensive blue line. Nika sneaks right behind him and scores. A rare, pretty weak effort from Coyle in the Teravainen goal, which I didn't love, but thankfully it's rare because it's Charlie Coyle. Effort's usually not an issue for him. Brad Marchand wasn't having it in the third, though. Tied the game up. Vintage Marchand, 2 goals in 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Him and Frederick each had 2 points. The Martin goal was bizarre how perfectly the passing and deflections to make it work happen. Really nothing the Bruins can do. It was just like 1 in a million kind of. But you can't let Jordan Martinook, a guy that's not known for his speed or elusiveness or offensive skill, really, as opposed to other players on the Hurricanes, at least, get behind you and end up scoring the game winner. Ottawa, 3-2 OT win 2 nights later. 1 night later, excuse me. Swayman stops 35-37. Shots are 37-23. Senators, that's pretty rough against one of the worst teams in the league. Pastrnak, one of the more vintage Pastrnak goals you'll see of the season, just an absolute howitzer. He actually just got selected to Team McDavid tonight. Swayman to Team McKinnon in the All-Star Game draft. Sick goal, just pure Pastrnak right there. And this is just another goal, if you need confirmation, that shows you that Trent Frederick is becoming a very legit play driver on the wing. Not like elite play driver like the McKinnons and McDavids of the world, of course, but he drives play, he scores goals, he's got a legit release, like legit good shooter, just becoming the first round pick they could have hoped for, despite seeing him as a potential third liner as he was drafted, which rightfully pissed off fans. Becoming a very good player in front of our eyes and on a great contract. For the Senators, great puck moving on the Shabbat goal. Tarasenko snipes won both goals in the power play, not great. And you get its classic for the Marchand OT winner as it gets. Do you have any thoughts on Trent Frederick? I imagine you share the same sentiments, but
Yeah. Yeah,
are
he's been excellent.
are you all in?
Absolutely. He's been excellent. I think he's been one of your bigger. I mean, we've kind of seen this coming. There's been glimpses before, especially
Mm-hmm.
towards I feel like the end of last year, he really started to, come into his own because this is the guy we've talked about, in the past of not being a head case, but I think it was you that was like, he's got
2 years ago, he was.
yeah, going into last
Mhm.
year, I think it was you were like, this is a guy that needs to figure it out, basically get your head out of your ass type of thing where it's like you have the skill.
It's a little cute. You can come off as a little cute earlier in your career, but when
Yeah.
you're looking for
Well,
bigger money,
especially when
bigger
you're in Boston and
paydays,
everybody
a
wants,
bigger role.
how many
Yeah.
jokes have you made that people made in the past if you want that enforcer, you want a guy that fights guys. And he was that
Mhm.
guy in his career. That's why everybody loved him at the start. But like you said, it grows stale, it grows old. Um,
Yeah.
but he's
He
been a
still
guy
does
that
it though.
he
He's
does,
just a
which
little more subtle.
it's yeah, exactly. It's more honed in, which is still good. I mean, you obviously still want a tougher guy, that'll stick up for people. But he's been excellent. No complaints with his play. And has definitely grown into I think a much better player than I definitely thought he was going to be. First coming up because you figured he was going to be that fourth line, not goon, but enforcer type of guy that goes out there, hits people, and that's all he's got and brings to the table. But he's been great, and he's been a huge part of it. Obviously, why they've been so successful.
Yeah, I think we've seen it last year and a half too. He can elevate any line he's on too,
Absolutely. Yep.
which is a huge boost to have in whether it's middle six or at times lately and becoming more consistently on your top line. Um, Philadelphia 6-2 win on the road. Lena stops 35-37. Get outshot again though, 37-28. Shouldn't be getting outshot this easily. Um, David Pastrnak is purely addicted to scoring against the Flyers. I
He
don't know,
hates the Flyers.
if anybody hasn't picked up on it yet. I feel like I've never seen them play the Flyers since he started his NHL career that he did not score. He scored his first NHL goal against them too back in 15 or 16. Had two. McAvoy adds one. Dan Heinen scored off a point shot that was deflected by Boquist that hit him in the face. Face goal for Dan Heinen. What can't the guy do? And JVR had a revenge game. His first game back in Philly after a long time there. Pretty cool to see. He's been quietly awesome. I think he has the third best, in terms of points and like contract, dollars per point or something.
Okay.
He's like third best in the league.
That's a
So
hell
he
of a
makes a
stat to
million
keep
bucks.
track of.
Yeah, I forget who was first off the top of my head, but Cat Friendly tweeted it out if anybody wants to look for it. Samuel Urson was pulled after 4 for Cal Peterson. Cal Peterson didn't have much better fortunes, though. Let's in a couple. Tyson Forster, though, if you're a Flyers fan, to see a young player score a couple after one of your young players, Owen Tippett, gets a $49.2, I believe, $1 million extension over 8 years. He's been fantastic. One of the best off the rush players in the league this year, all of a sudden. A guy I loved coming out of his draft year, was huge on him out of Mississauga. Nice to see him finally figured out. Just sucks it's in Philly. But he's a fantastic player. Didn't do a ton in this game, though. And Charlie Coyle caps it off on a rebound. Nice and easy one. Continues to show he can be a 1C on this team. Coming up, though, just one game before our next show. Calgary comes to Boston. Sans Elias Lindholm, as we'll get to in a second. 22 and 5 on the year for Calgary, 6th in the Pacific Division. Blake Coleman is now the leading scorer. He might have had more than Lindholm to begin with, but I don't have Lindholm's point total off the top of my head, so it could have been either way. Lindholm's on his way to Vancouver. Chris Tanev could reunite with the Canucks in another trade down the road, it sounds like. The Canucks are loading up, and they're already very good. It sounds like Elias Lindholm is going to play with Elias Pettersson. He's going to be much better there. It's been a down year. They've lost Tkachuk and Gaudreau. His offense is going to take a little bit of a hit, but I think there's enough over the last 3 years, sample size wise, to be excited about it, even if it's just a rental for a team in the Canucks that really wants to win a Stanley Cup, evidently. It's a great move for them, but I think at the same time, Calgary got a great return. But just a couple pieces of news before we get to that. In the 2018 World Junior case, Flyers goalie Carter Hart, Devils forward and defenseman Mike McLeod, Cal Foot, and Flames forward Dylan Dubé have been charged with sexual assault in relation to the 2018 Hockey Canada incident. There's going to be a press conference on the 5th from London Police Service in Ontario, so we'll get more details there. This case might take till 2026 to get to trial due to the backlog in the system there. So it's going to take a while to figure this out. All players involved have pled innocence, but we'll see what happens in the end. The legal proceedings will come out over the years. It's not gonna be a short process from the
I
sounds
can't
of things.
imagine. No.
A quick point on Talking Hockey Sense, fantastic podcast hosted by Chris Peters, by the way. Chris Peters and Brad Schlossman of the Grand Forks Herald, great writer, talked about the CHL and NCAA negotiations to allow the NCAA to recruit Canadian major junior league players, which could drastically affect the talent level in the CHL. That's why this thing has been an agreement to not allow the NCAA to do it in the past. Could affect the CHL negatively, could affect the BCHL as well, and could also strongly enhance the NCAA. Sounds like more from what they said, a when, if not if, in the next couple of years, which would be a huge announcement. But there will be some stark opposition because CHL fandom is very tied in community, and having big time NHL prospects, I think that would break a lot of hearts. But it's something that's been talked about for a while, but it's just something interesting to monitor that I'd bring it up for anybody who didn't know. Go check out the latest episode of Talking Hockey Sense on all platforms. If you'd like to hear for yourself. Free plug because I like the podcast so much. Elias Lindholm, though, traded from Calgary to Vancouver for Andrei Kuzmenko, who's believed to have discussed before the trade with Calgary his bigger role. He's kind of been on the outs with Vancouver this year, pending UFA this summer. Great player, though, can really score if he's in the right role. Hunter Brustevich was one of the big names here. Some thinks he can be like an Adam Fox level defenseman, which is pretty ridiculous.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
He's the OHL's leading scorer, either in general or amongst defensemen. Either way, still a phenomenal player. He's the third-round pick in 2022. I remember hearing a lot about him going into his draft season. Seems like a phenomenal player. It's actually funny that he's going to the Flames because Adam Fox spurned the Flames en route to eventually ending up with the Rangers, spurned the Flames and the Hurricanes. Don't really see people do that 2 times very much. Joni Jurmo, a third-round pick, defenseman playing in Finland from 2020. Seems like a decent player, maybe like a third pairing defenseman at best. I don't know a lot about him, to be honest. They get Vancouver 2024 first, which could very well be at the back half, and a conditional 2024 fourth. Huge deal for them. I think Lindholm's going to be revitalized. They now have 6 All-Stars with the addition of Lindholm. Great team. I think it's going to be a great fit, even if it's a rental. And Elias Lindholm, interestingly, said that he would have stayed with Calgary, despite reports saying saying the contrary. So, very interesting deal. It has sped up the market for a guy like Sean Lawton. People are asking about him more. A lot of the NHL trade deadline is waiting for one big name at each position to drop, and then that sets the asking prices a little bit. It'll help with Sean Monahan. When Tanev goes, it'll help with guys like Sean Walker, maybe Matt Grzelcyk if the Bruins try to move him. Maybe that'll give an idea of what the defensive market's going to look like. Obviously, Grzelcyk won't fetch the return that Chris Tanev is going to. He's a phenomenal defensive block shots, plays a playoff physical style. Did you have any reactions to the trade additionally, or shall we move on to Red Sox?
Not really. I mean, this was, I feel like, something that you kind of maybe not could see coming down the pipeline because it's something that's been obviously brought up here and there from time to time. But just, it finally, that's where I'm curious to see who the next big next big shoe to drop is. Now that Lindholm, because he was obviously kind of the talk of the town these last, I feel like, couple of seasons. From what you told me, because I don't know if I was the one that showed it to you or not, or you already knew about it, but obviously a guy that had been linked to the Bruins in the past. You seemed like you were pretty content on them not getting him. Is that just because the return that Calgary was able to get for him, or just kind of what were your thoughts from maybe a Bruins standpoint?
I would have been cool with Lindholm last year. The fall off kind of concerns me as he enters his 30s. I think he'd be much better here. The Athletic put out the potential package of a 2025 first, Poitras and Frederick.
Yep. Which I was not.
Stop saying Poitras. I still say something like Poitras. Wouldn't be down for that at all. In this case, maybe an equivalent to Kuzmenko is like a Frederick or DeBrusk, and then you figure out the prospects and picks. Vancouver is in a much better position to weaponize trade assets like that than the Bruins were. I'm happy they stayed away. I like guys like Pat Maroon and Jake Middleton as a combo right now. That my old boss at WEI, Scott McLaughlin, wrote about today. So we'll elaborate on that more in the future, though. Don't need to get into tons of trade deadline stuff right now. We do have some very quick Red Sox stuff, though, before we talk about some NBA trade deadline, because that is a week from today.
It's very rude. The first time we talk Celtics in a while, I have to sell the game in the background against the Lakers, who do not have LeBron James or Anthony Davis, and it is the most dead I have seen the Celtics play in a long time. So very rude of them. The first night we talk about them in quite some time, they just did not really decide to show up tonight. But
Disrespectful.
yeah, very disrespectful. They're disrespectful. We'll get to that in a second. Red Sox, though, I was thinking about this when you were doing the Bruin stuff. We need like some sort of like buzzer or like lead up to this, like what stupid things are the Red Sox up to today or this week or something, because it happens
Yeah.
every week.
Like a Wheel of Fortune type of thing, like
Yeah,
or like no, like
absolutely.
Family Feud type of like music, and
It's an
someone walks
intro, yeah.
on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be some like really shitty
Da-da-da-da-da.
intro though, because it just would feed into the overall aspect of the team. No, the Red Sox this week, like I said, it just gets worse. It seems like every week. Decided to let probably their best right-handed hitter from a season ago. You can maybe even argue their best hitter and maybe best player last year. You know, Devers had his struggles at times, put together a pretty good season. Justin Turner, they let him walk to the Toronto Blue Jays on a 1-year deal with a base salary of $13 million. With $1.5 million in roster and performance bonuses. Meanwhile, for a quick soccer segment or in golf segment as well, the Red Sox and Fenway Sport, or not the Red Sox, but Fenway Sports Group signed
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah, they signed that, whatever it was. I think right now it's at $1.5 billion, but it'll go up to $3 billion for that golf, PGA, live, whatever thing they're doing with that.
Yeah.
And then again, just to show that, maybe Fenway Sports Group is not the best thing to partner with, which people have found kind of interesting of late. Not that we're a big soccer podcast or anything, but obviously people know that Fenway Sports Group owns Liverpool. Their head coach either last week or a couple weeks ago, he decided to leave. Said, I'm done. I'm out. A lot of people seem to think, I was listening to Maz talk about it the other day, that, they don't want to pay the coaches, don't want to maybe pay some of the players. Kind of interesting. Sounds like Fenway Sports Group is going the same way with Liverpool that they are with the Red Sox. So there's your quick soccer minute. But yeah, this in an offseason, back on the Turner stuff, in an offseason that has had just aggravating, inexcusable moves, this one might take the cake. I thought Boston Sports Gordo, if you follow them on Twitter or him on Twitter, had a great tweet summarizing this and Turner's fit. He broke it down into two ways, basically. Like, obviously, we know the Red Sox, they're not trying to win. But if they were, he said a couple reasons to bring Turner back would be obviously really good right-handed number 3 bat, can DH, play first base, play third base, and play second base, be a leader on your team, which obviously we saw that last year, help some of the young guys come along the way. He also went on to say, if you're only looking for only care about the future when it comes to Turner, you're probably going to move on from him in the end. Very affordable 1-year deal, could be a leader or example of your next wave of players. And just overall, it would appease the fans. Again, it would be the Band-Aid over what's been a horrendous offseason. But throw us a bone here type of thing. Like a guy that was obviously a fan favorite really right from the get-go. Who never really had any problems here, never really had any down moments. Again, was one of the bigger surprises and one of your best players a season ago. Some people you could maybe argue it back to, okay, this is, again, maybe you should have traded him last year when you had a young pitcher from the Marlins on the table. But that's a Chaim Bloom thing. I'm not going to dump on that too much. This one to me, it's just a joke. Again, it solidifies that they're not doing anything. You had Ken Rosenthal. I don't know if you saw, he was on, I think it was AJ Pierzynski's podcast this week, and Pierzynski flat out asked him, what are the Red Sox doing? Are they trying? And Ken Rosenthal kind of laughed and was like, nope, they're not. Like they're a big market team, as we know, that aren't operating like it in the slightest. Then you have people, I think it was like John Heyman came out and is still trying to say that, Jordan Montgomery would be a good fit for the Red Sox. He's a guy I could see going there. The typical smoke and mirrors type of thing that I think that he's just basically in John Henry's pocket at this point. Just, hey, we'll pay you just to throw out some bullshit rumors for the Red Sox. I'm rambling though. The Turner thing is just to sum it up. It's just aggravating. This is a guy that you should have been able to bring back, no problem. Could have DH'd him, could have, given Casas a rest here and there at first base, played him. Should have been able to fit in your lineup because right now you don't have that right-handed power bat in the middle of your lineup. Like some people might say Trevor Story, but again, like if you're throwing all your eggs in the Trevor Story basket, I'm sorry, like that's good luck to you because it's not going to work. I'm hoping for a bounce back year for him, but you needed somebody else. Turner would have been that guy. Obviously, Duvall's still out there, but you really haven't heard anything about him since it happened. Now the Soler stuff's coming back again, which again, do you believe that? I don't, because I think it's just more of, throwing a Band-Aid on a bad situation here. I'm rambling. Your thoughts on the whole Turner situation and kind of, where you're at with him going to Toronto.
I'm not going to act like I'm mad about it because I'm just expecting
Expected at this point. Okay,
especially
yep,
with the
that's
lack
fair.
of spending. That's came out since we first like ever talked about him coming back. So like it's whatever to me.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. I think the thing too that's aggravating, and again, I'll throw the term competing with because we know the Red Sox aren't competing with anybody at this point. Um, the fact, excuse me, that you let him go to a division rival that you're quote unquote supposed to be competing directly with in a division, obviously, that's one of the more inexcusable things too. You added this, I just saw to the outline, and you can buy Red Sox tickets at Costco now. I didn't see that.
Yeah, Jared Carrabis tweeted that out, which I feel like I've maybe seen that in the
Teams have
past, but
done that.
like
I
it's
saw that
still
last
funny.
year. There was
Got
a
to get
team.
those
Excuse
Costco
me.
ticket sales.
I guess so. I don't know how many people are going to Costco to buy Red Sox tickets. There shouldn't be people going to RedSox.com to buy Red Sox tickets, but
Yeah, there should
if
be
you want to
people
pick up a
selling
pack
their
at Costco,
Red
go
Sox
for it.
tickets, season tickets. Yeah, they're just pathetic. Like, you know,
That's all it really is. Yeah, I mean
status quo at this point.
yeah, it is what it is. Like they can continue to peddle lies to you and call you liars, which I did see Sam Kennedy, I think, either walked back that comment the other day or was basically kind of pulled the same Tom Warner, like, oh, I may not have, worded my words correctly when I said that. Basically calling Red Sox fans liars. So that's good that he apologized for that. So thank you. You really, are making a difference in my eyes now. That changes my thoughts and about you and your personality and everything like that. So that's cool, Sam Kennedy. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, cool.
But,
Like
yep.
dickhead.
It is what it is.
Yeah, that's really about it with the Red Sox. I feel I just wanted to catch up unless you have
Oh,
anything
they did
else to
sign a
say.
couple of like minor league bums. So I don't know
Oh
how
yeah,
jazzed up you get for Rami Gonzalez, who hit like 190 something, I think, last year, and then some stiff from the Giants
for
that had a 7.5 ERA in AAA. Like, I'm
for a
cool.
state of
Thanks.
how where my brain's at with the team, I had a dream last night that they traded Roman Anthony in a deal for Dylan Cease. So,
Probably not going to happen,
that
but
would make me
that's
upset.
why it's a dream.
Celtics. This is easily, I feel like, the quietest in terms of Celtics rumors going into the trade deadline, but there are some names, we are going to speculate on a little bit. I will get my quick thoughts out of the way
Okay.
before we get into a little bit of names briefly. I want anybody who can score off the bench for a reasonable price. Maybe a cheap big as well. I like a guy named like Tyus Jones though from the Wizards. That's where I'm at, and that's about as simple as it gets for me.
It is funny because he's a guy that not that I don't have zero interest in because he's a good player. He gives you, obviously you said that scoring ability off the bench, but for me, it's the fact that he's a guard, and I feel like you don't need a lot of guards at this point. Like
That's too, yeah.
you
I
have
just like the
Pritchard, you have
scoring
Hauser who can play
aspect, a little bit of
both.
depth.
I kind of figured that when I saw you throw his name in there. Wouldn't hate it if they could find a way to get him. I don't know what his contract situation is, but he is a guy that looking through some of the articles that have come out, his name has popped up a couple times as a guy that they could potentially target. I'm with you. I would like them to make a move. I know there's some people that think maybe they should stay pat. It is going to be difficult, like it is with the Celtics in the trade deadline because of money situations. Again, a TPE is probably their best trade piece. The Grant Williams one for right around I think 6.2 million is what it's at. So that's something they're probably going to have to try to dangle out there for teams to get. They'll probably be active in the buyout market again. If I had to guess, that's probably where they'll hang their hat, try to get a veteran guy that maybe got released or something like that, or is kind of waiting around. But like I said, I would like some sort of smaller move, to depth move, preferably for a big man / a wing. So I'm going in a little bit of a different direction than you are with a scoring guard. For a couple of reasons. You've seen Porzingis. I think he's missed 13 or 14 games now. You knew that coming into the year he wasn't going to play a full year, so I have no problem with that. But you would like some insurance for him just in case he has to sit out a couple of games down the stretch. Al Horford is 38, or he's going to be 38 in June. You saw him definitely fall off at the end of last year, which sucked because obviously
that's
big
where
Al
the
Horford
cheap
guys.
big thing kind of comes from for me.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm right there with you. So can you rely on him
even if it's a little more expensive? Like who gives a shit about draft picks?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
Well, there was the thing too. Brad Stevens, I'm pretty sure he said, ownership once again has given him the green light. They're going to be, I think he said, active at the deadline or try to improve. So that's obviously good to see. The other thing on a big too, like Luke Cornett, he's been great. He's hurt now, of course. But if he's been great, can he stay healthy? Can he stay as good as he's been down the stretch? Can you trust him in the playoffs? I don't know. I like Luke Cornett, but I feel like I would just maybe want more, again, insurance just in case something happens there. From a Tatum and Brown side of things, for when it comes to a wing, Tatum's averaging, I looked it up last night, 35.5 minutes a game. Brown's averaging 33.3. Not terrible numbers. Those are what you expect from star, guys, two, main players on your team. Wouldn't hate a wing, just as, again, you're getting into crunch time. Maybe you're locked into that number 1 seed or wherever they end up. maybe you get a wing so you can rest them down the stretch, have them a little bit fresher maybe than they would be playing some extra minutes here down the stretch. And then the other thing too, kind of goes back to the bench scoring, like you mentioned. Um, let's be honest, your two main bench scorers are Hauser and Pritchard. You saw last year in the playoffs, lights got bright. There were moments where they couldn't hack it. Again, they've both been good this year. Don't get me wrong, but history has shown they have struggled in the playoffs at times, especially on the road. So they're kind of a question mark when it comes to trusting guys as you move forward. Some of the other bench guys, O'Shea Brissett gives you good energy defensively, not a whole lot offensively, and then guys like Delano Banton, Lamar Stevens, and Svi Mihailuk. To me, it's going to sound bad, but to me, they're cannon fodder. Like, they're not going to get in unless it's a blowout game. Or you have a couple of guys out here and there. You need somebody to eat some minutes. So there are a couple of guys that maybe you throw into a deal. We've seen Brad Stevens do that before, kind of turn these end of the bench guys into something, which he's done a good job in the past of doing. But those are guys that aren't getting a ton of minutes right now. If you have to give minutes somewhere else, like it should be someone you can go out on the market and get. You kind of alluded to a guy that you wanted to bring in, Tyus Jones. I threw a bunch of names in here that I was going to run through in a minute. But are there any that stand out maybe more so to you, guys that you maybe know a little bit more about than others, or directions that you might want to go in outside of a guy like Tyus Jones?
Yeah, I've heard of C.D. Osman. Don't know a lot about him. I know Otto Porter Jr. is. Name doesn't excite me a ton though, to be honest. Also, just stats aren't great in the limited time
he has not been good this year. Yeah,
this Najee Marshall kid seems decent. Kelly Olynyk, just for nostalgia, if you can get him, like wouldn't really hate that. Isaiah Stewart's a great name, despite the $60 million extension, which kind of scares me off. Don't know if you really need to commit to that for a depth move for a title run, but
I don't know if he'll be able to either.
Else, yeah. I don't know, man. Like that, I don't know if that's really worth the risk when you're really just adding it for bench depth. Like, is he a long-term piece? You have to ask yourself that question. Other than that, nothing really crazy from me.
He's one of the guys that I think it was, I can't remember who wrote the 98.5 article that was talking about. There might have been one of the Joe Murrays. But that was kind of his thing, is Isaiah Stewart is mainly a pipe dream type of thing. And again, he alluded to the same thing you did. The 4-year, $60 million extension kicks in next year. But he did bring up Brad Stevens does love to surprise people. I mean, he feels like comes out of left field when it comes to these trade deadlines. Think of Derek White. No one expected that deal, and look how well that's worked out. I'm with you. I don't see this deal happening at all. It's a pipe dream. I also don't think, he's played 35 games, started 34 of them for the Pistons. Probably not going to want to come off the bench, which is where he'd be coming off. He's not going to start over Porzingis. He's not going to start over Tatum or Brown at the, the 4 or the 3. He's not going to play small forward. So that one's kind of a pipe dream. The one that does interest me, Kelly Olynyk. He's been linked to the Celtics. I was going to say Red Sox. I don't even think the Red Sox would be linked to him if they wanted, anything like that. But Kelly Olynyk's an interesting one. Obviously, there's been some history with the Celtics, of course. Just has played really well. But he's probably going to be one of the bigger commodities this offseason. The Jazz, they stink. He's at the end of his, I think, whatever it was, 4-year deal he signed there, a 3-year deal. So that's probably gonna garner a hefty price tag. Probably not going to be in the buyout market because I think he will get traded at the deadline. And again, it falls into Brad Stevens has had a knack for these type of moves before, where you don't expect him to do something, or maybe get a guy like this because the contract might be difficult to bring in. Again, just over $12 million. You're going to have to make that work with the 6.2 you have available with the Williams TPE. But Brad Stevens has done it before. He makes these things work. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. Some of the other names that came up in some articles I was looking at, Rashawn Holmes, the Mavericks, same thing, making over $12 million this year, played 21 games. He's only averaging 3.2 points. Not a huge offensive threat, but he is, the definition of, a big that can come in off the bench, give Horford, Porzingis, a little bit of a rest. Cornette, if he's still banged up. He's a veteran guy, not the worst thing on the planet. Jayshawn Tate, a guy I think we talked about last year at the trade deadline because he was linked to the Celtics. He's been linked again. The Athletic had the report that both the Celtics and Suns have shown interest in him. Again, the Grant Williams TP doesn't fit into that, so you have to get creative with the contract. And then to me, when I was thinking about this last night, there is the fact that he is a Houston Rocket. So does, if Ime has a say in making a trade with the Celtics, does he nix that? Again, this is a guy that's been linked to the Celtics before. Did you have any thoughts on, him as a standout guy? Nothing too crazy.
Nope.
Fair enough.
I will say on the topic of bigs, though, I love Neemias Queta.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's, again, look, another guy that kind of falls into the same boat that Cornette falls into for me, because I was just, again, had the game on in the background. He was doing something and I got a rebound here. And I was like, oh, I didn't even mention him. To me, he kind of
He's
falls into the
awesome.
same. He is. He's definitely
He's
better.
ginormous.
He is enormous. Yep. Um, but definitely better than the I thought he was going to be, because the guy that really didn't know a whole lot about
Too
coming into this
easy. That's a
season,
slam dunk, right
he
as we're
dunked it.
talking
Yep.
about it, baby.
Um,
And he
yeah, he
wears
made
88. Let's
and he
move on
wears
from it.
88. But yeah, to finish the thought, he's kind of in the same boat Cornette is for me. Like, again, a guy who's been a great find and has, improved as the season has gone on. You get into the playoffs, like, is this a guy that's going to see minutes? Can you trust him in the big moment? Not that they're going to have to rely heavily on him, but you know what I mean. Like a guy down the stretch, if you need minutes from somebody, do you trust him? Do you trust maybe a veteran guy that's been there more so than him? That's why a name like Otto Porter Jr. to me kind of stands out a little bit. Again, his numbers stink. He's played 15 games. He's been hurt. He's only averaging just over 2.5 points per game on a horrendous Raptors team who, have shown that they are sellers. They traded Siakam a week or two ago. So maybe you can get him cheap there. That's kind of where I'm at with him. He does fit into the Grant Williams TPE, 6.3 million. So you're going to have to maybe send a player back. It doesn't make a ton of money. Can make that work, no problem. The thing that stands out to him, though, unfortunately for Celtics fans, is he was part of that Warriors finals team that beat the Celtics. So there is that factor of, he does have that pedigree and that mindset of, knowing what it takes to win in the playoffs, knowing what it takes to win. You really don't have that outside of Drew Holiday. Not that that's like a huge thing or has shown up that, you need another veteran guy that can win. But I think it's nice to have, a guy that's been there before. If things start to get tough, maybe he's the guy that can kind of calm things down a little bit. And again, he's just another body out there with the experience that, maybe he's a guy that changes scenery type of thing. Maybe gives you a little bit of something. And again, one of the cheaper guys on this list that I've come up with, you mentioned CD Osman. Again, maybe a pipe dream type of thing, because the price tag is probably going to be decent. Celtics obviously have history trading with the Spurs. It's worked out well for the Celtics before with the Holiday trade, or not the Holiday trade, excuse me, the White trade. But he kind of falls into the same category as Sam Hauser, shooter first, scrappy on defense at times. So I wouldn't hate him. And then the other one that has come up, a guy that I honestly don't know a whole lot about, but there's been a couple of people that think he'd be a good fit, is John Conchar from the Grizzlies. Again, the Grizzlies
Sergei
stink.
Gonchar?
Yeah, Sergei Gonchar. Yep. But no, this is Conchar with a K. The Grizzlies suck. We know that. They're not playing for anything. They're probably going to be sellers at the deadline if they have pieces to sell. He is incredibly cheap. He's only making 2.4 million. Not going to blow you away offensively, only averaging 3.6 points per game, 30% from deep. Again, though, is a body, can play the 3, can play the 2, small forward shooting guard, gives you that nice mix. Wouldn't be the worst low-cost depth option. And it really wouldn't surprise me if this is the guy the Celtics maybe target, if they are going to maybe target someone in the trade, more so the buyout market. Wouldn't hate it. Again, I'm more looking for just, a depth guy just to shore some things up that maybe is a little bit more of a sure thing than guys like Banton, Stevens, Mihailuk, like I said, who don't get into games a whole lot unless it's, a blowout neither, for the Celtics or against them.
Yep. And Ryan, before we wrap it up, I have a couple bits of breaking news. Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Commanders are considering Chip Kelly.
Oh, God.
To return to the NFL to be the Commanders OC under Dan Quinn.
Do you not have the breaking baseball news that just dropped?
No, I don't.
Because this is something we didn't, and we could have joked about this when we talked about Red Sox ownership, because I completely forgot it happened, that the Orioles, Red Sox should take a page out of the Orioles book.
They sell the team.
They were sold. Yep. Their idiot owner who, I'm not going to go into all the stuff that he's done, but I mean, I don't know if you heard about the broadcaster that got suspended last year because he, So yeah, the guy was negatively talking about the Orioles, even though he was just reading off the teleprompter basically about how they hadn't beaten the Rays, and the guy got suspended for it. So I think the owner himself too, when asked about like, oh, how are you going to sign all these, or, keep all these young guys, the Rutschmans, the Hendersons of the world, all these guys that you're going to build your team around. I think he basically was like, we'll sign who we can sign. And if guys leave. Like, it's not a big deal to me, that type of thing. That idiot owner is out. They sold, and the Orioles immediately capitalized on it. I had this a minute ago. I believe they just traded for Corbin Burns.
Holy shit.
They did.
What?
Yep. Ken Rosenthal, as of 13 minutes ago, so I don't know why it just broke on my phone as of right now, but they are close to acquiring one Corbin Burns from the Milwaukee Brewers.
Shortstop Joey Ortiz and left-hander DL Hall. A DL, that's a tough name to have in baseball.
It is,
Maybe that's the IL now. are going to the Brewers in the trade that will send Corbin Burns to Baltimore. They must be pretty nasty if that's all it took.
I'm trying to. They're both decent prospects. I'm trying to remember exactly where they are. I'm gonna look it up really quick.
Oh my God! Wow, Corbin Burns out of
Oh, there's the
nowhere.
Orioles ace that they were looking for. Pretty good
Right
offseason. You
after they
let
get rid of
not
the
that not
after
that
they
Jack
sell the
Flaherty
team.
is an ace, but you let him walk. Don't really replace
Holy
him, and then
smokes.
you get out of nowhere Corbin Burns. Who'd you
That's
say the names
crazy.
were again? Joey Ortiz and who
Joey
else?
Ortiz and
DL Hall.
DL Hall.
Joey Ortiz is their number 6 overall infield prospect, and DL Hall. I know he was a top prospect before. I don't know if he has. Maybe he had major league experience because he's not on their prospect list. So I don't know if he pitched for them
That's not good.
last year. Going into the 2022 season, DL Hall was the number 5 prospect in the organization. So you could say 2
All right.
former top 5, top 10 prospects, depending on where Hall
That's kind of
shaked
low,
out.
but
5 and
that's okay.
6,
We'll
yeah,
see.
for
Maybe
Corbin.
there are more pieces. We'll see how it matriculates out here.
Corbin Burns is
That's
also a potential flight risk. Sorry to cut you off. I think he is a free agent
why.
at the end of this
Oh,
upcoming
okay.
year, so might be a guy that needs an extension, and that was probably why the Red
All right,
Sox
maybe
were
the
scared
new
away
owner
from
will
him.
do that. Maybe that's why they did it. We'll see.
We're
That is
also
going to
getting a
wrap it up.
draft pick. Sorry, it also
What?
just came through. I didn't think you could trade draft picks, but Mark Feinsand had this from a minute ago, along with Hall and Ortiz. The Brewers will receive a 2024 competitive balance round, competitive balance round A draft pick from the Orioles per sources. That's the entire deal. So Hall, Ortiz, and a draft pick.
Wow. Some
Breaking news
How
on
about
the
that?
show. Nice.
Make sure to listen to the end.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up for episode 178. Be sure to listen to the Full Press Coverage Hockey Show coming up shortly after us. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts. You can rate and review on Apple and Spotify. You can subscribe on YouTube and on Twitch. You can download the Full Press Coverage app, all that good stuff. You can find us on Twitter at Mike_Cratty, at Ryan_Salvaggio on the show at Salvaggio and Cratty Pod. You can follow us on TikTok, same name as well. We'll see you next week with the Super Bowl preview and much more, some Celtics NBA trade deadline stuff. But we'll see you then. Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice to people, all that good stuff, all the whole shebang. And we'll talk to you then next Wednesday.